Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer SS&C Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, or best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to see how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. Our guest on this episode is David Burnie, CEO of the Burnie Group. Today, we'll be talking with David about the impact of technologies like intelligent automation and what they can do for the contact center from an operational viewpoint, but also from the perspective of the customer. Welcome, David.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for joining us today. David, would you please introduce yourself and share a little bit more about you and your background, as well as the Burnie Group?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thanks for inviting me onto your show and your podcast. I founded Burnie Group in 2011. Prior to that, I'd been at McKinsey & Company for 8 years. And I thought there was a real opportunity to bring together the best of management consulting approaches and technology. Too frequently, organizations had some real challenges in taking recommendations and putting them into action. And I thought, what better way to do that than to embrace technology? Very early, automation became a foundational element for Burnie Group. We were Blue Prism's very first partner in North America, and we've been working to build automation within the operations of our clients since 2012. And so our efforts are really focused on helping organizations to transform the way that they operate, and automation is central to that focus.
What are the other things beyond just general automation that you've seen going into practice here is more on the contact center side? And that's some of the questions I want to focus on today, because you really have a lot of experience in that space. So I wanted to find out from you, how can a digital workforce actually benefit the contact center?
We've been doing work in contact centers for many years. And until recently, automation wasn't a particularly big focus. Automation technology had always been very much focused on the back office. So as you think of the back office operations in the contact center, that was a focus. Interacting when a frontline employee is interacting with a customer, automation becomes pretty difficult. You've got interactions that are happening on the spot. You've got a few minutes to speak to a customer and to deal with their concerns. And so to build and develop automations to help with that interaction is very complex. Recently, technology has advanced to really allow automation to help with the minute-by-minute interactions with customers. And so we've been working over the past couple of years very closely with Blue Prism and their new Service Assist offering to really transform the way that contact centers can operate. And it has indeed really changed the way that contact centers can work and driven an impact across operational efficiency, the customer experience, and employee engagement.
We're certainly going to dive into some of that in a little bit, but when you look at this from a broader perspective, how do you actually approach helping contact centers begin and then progress their automation journey?
So I think the first starting point is to really understand what's important for a contact center. Are they about what kind of customer focus do they have? What are their sales goals, their sales objectives? How much operational efficiency do they want to drive? And so overall, what is their strategy? So I think that's an important starting point to understand what do they want to accomplish. Then what we can do is we can work very closely with leadership to identify how automation can really help in that journey. And we'll usually go and do a very high-level assessment across the entire organization, entire contact center, to identify where automation can make an impact. We'll look at all the volumes coming into a contact center to see where time is being spent. We'll look at personal objectives of leadership to see what do they want to improve and enhance. And based on that, we will develop a strategy to really help that contact center perform better. So building at that automation strategy is typically a key starting point and something where we will build a roadmap which can progress for team to 18 months to 2 years.
So that's a very high level viewpoint of the approach. Can you give us an example or two without revealing any clients specifically of how this approach is actually put into practice? I mean, some of the things you mentioned regarding leadership viewpoints, et cetera, are going to differ from organization to organization depending on the outcomes they're looking for. So what does that look like in real life?
Well, let me give an example of one automation that we did with a client. So they were interested in trying to figure out how to improve the move process. So to give you an example, when people are moving homes, and this was in the telecommunications industry, when people move from one house to another, there's a lot of work that needs to happen. You need to change the internet, mobile phone billing. Might have a home phone. You've got just a lot of different products and services which need to be transferred. That in the past had been very complex. So as a starting point, we needed to go in and understand end to end, how does the move process work? What are all the activities that take place? What are all the interactions that are done in the background? And what does that customer journey look like? Once we'd identified the customer journey, we could then set to work to build out a strategy to transform the way that move process actually happened. So we went in, we worked very closely with the client, say, what's the current state of moving from one house to another for a customer? And then what should the target state be? And then based on that, we started to build automations and redesign processes to really impact that move process. That effort took us a number of months, but by the end, we'd been able to dramatically change the way that the move process worked, reducing average handle time in many cases for different processes as much as 90% or completely eliminating them, and just making it simpler and easier for customers. And one of the things that we found really interesting was that it was a great benefit to employees. To that point, employees had been really worried about getting on a call where someone was making a move, especially if they were a newer employee. It was very complex, very time consuming, and they just had a difficult time with those interactions with customers. With the new automations that we built, managing the moving process became quick and easy and effortless. And it improved and enhanced the way that employees felt about working with their organization. So it had the multiple benefits of being much more efficient, being much better for the customer, and being significantly better for the employees and overall employee morale.
So you start mentioning some of these things regarding the metrics that you're working towards. I imagine they're going to be different or slightly different depending on the organization you're going towards. But I would imagine they fall into three main buckets. There's the business metrics associated with the costs or the benefits to the business themselves, the metrics that are associated with the employees, because you mentioned something about employees, and I want to dig into that a little bit, but also the metrics associated with the customer. Can you comment on how you would drive those specific metrics from a business perspective, an employee perspective, and a customer perspective within a particular client?
The nice thing is, Michael, that typically all three of those major areas are positively impacted when we go in and work on our automation program. So you're not going to get just one or the other. Often though, there will be a different emphasis, and some automations will impact the customer experience more or be a bigger driver of operational effectiveness. So this is where we would work closely with our clients to understand what their priorities are. And typically they'll say, we want to go after it all. So it's not a case of if, it's more a question of when. And that's how we work with them to build out an automation roadmap and start to prioritize what are the initiatives that we want to do first, second, third. And those priorities from their perspective are really what shape that roadmap.
So introducing automation can help a business from a cost perspective and an efficiency perspective, can certainly help the customer experience to be very positive. And from employees, you mentioned that this is a positive experience for them, but how do employees react to the concept of introducing automation into an area where perhaps automation hasn't really reached into at this point?
Initially, the employee experience or the reaction from employees can be hesitant. When you hear the word automation, people will often react, say, oh my gosh, what does this mean for me? And so putting together a change management program and clearly communicating the goals and objectives of the program is very important. What we find is that most organizations, when they implement a program, contrary to the initial reticence of employees or perhaps even a little bit of fear, once it gets going, they actually find that it is great. Many of these activities that were very painful, very manual, caused delays, forced frontline employees to escalate or to put customers on hold. Many of those disappear. And so it makes that interaction with the customer that much easier for them. And as a result, it makes for a better work environment. In terms of efficiencies, what we have found is that companies often can deal with efficiencies or embrace efficiency through natural attrition. And in many cases, we will take frontline employees and bring them in to help design some of the automations themselves. So often, if an organization can go in with the positive message to both openly communicate the path towards automation, but then also share the fact that this is going to be a benefit for employees and that they want to engage with employees and get their input into the way that automations work, we find that it actually has a net positive benefit and is received very positively by employees.
And that sort of makes sense to me as I think about the high turnover rates that happen within a contact center. Very few people enjoy getting screamed at daily. So when customers do call in and are able to start the journey on a more positive basis, and the automation is supporting the employees to be able to offer that, that gives it, again, from an employee perspective, allows them to enjoy their job a little bit more, which then translates into even higher customer experience scores because they can feel that the employees are actually caring about the interaction rather than just trying to get through it.
Exactly. It's a virtuous cycle where it just improves so many different things. And it gives employees confidence that they can go in and often contact centers are the environment where there often is fairly high turnover. So you've got a lot of newer team members who are trying to learn their job. So it gives them a lot more confidence in being able to go and do their jobs effectively and help customers. And so it does create a very positive environment.
So there sounds like there's quite a few opportunities within a contact center to apply automation and transformation. As you look at them, what would you say their top three opportunities would be within the contact center from an automation or transformation perspective to leverage automation to support the business, employee, and customer outcomes?
So when we think about opportunities, we typically start with high volume interactions. And we find that the highest volume interactions frequently will be those that require a lot of manual work, a lot of manual effort. And so they are usually a good candidate for automation to provide assistance and support. So we typically start with looking at volumes. Then we will look at areas where there's a lot of manual effort, a lot of repetition, a lot of swivel chair. So going from one screen to the next. And that will typically be a signal that there's an opportunity for improvement. And so we will look at those processes to figure out where automation can drive the benefit. And then finally, complexity. Sometimes there are activities or actions which are super complex, and it ultimately requires, on a typical call, a lot of hold time, escalation, moving it to a different queue. Those are areas where you might not get the same operational efficiency because they're perhaps less frequent. But the benefit is if you can fix those, which because they're so complex, a digital worker never forgets. So once we teach them how to do it, they can do it over and over again. The ultimate outcome is a huge impact to customer experience because it's those really complex situations which are usually really important, really impactful for a customer. And if you don't get those right, that can really color the impression that a customer has by your organization.
Do you have any like specific examples you could share?
Yeah, just sticking with the move process. In some instances, if you want, what we saw was a customer shifting to a different address, the switching them from their internet from one home to another. It wasn't only just a simple case of billing, but there's service that needs to be provided. So you need to be coordinating with the teams that are going out and doing the installs. There's the whole billing side of it. And so there's just many different components that are impacted by that one transaction. And so by making it simple and knowing not only how to do each of those, but also having the long list of these are all the things that you need to do to shift someone's internet from home A to home B, is a good example where that complexity is really assisted by the implementation of automation.
And that can make sense. I came from a networking background, so understanding the transitions for rolling a truck to get to a point to actually do an installation, understanding whether or not that they have the internet cables are actually in the ground to that location. It could be a new home and a new subdivision that may not have run before, which then adds a whole different crew to the mix. And then you mentioned about the types of transition actions you have. They're all based on timing. So these crews may be available at one time or another time, and the customer wants it to happen at this time or this time. So provide that scheduling options all during that one short interaction that can be, I think, very complex, as you mentioned.
Exactly. And one of the nice things is with automation, you can start to move towards more self-service with customers. So by building integrations into the website, you can actually have customers go on and start to serve themselves without needing to speak to a frontline employee at all. So they can go in, let's say that you needed to change the date, the time of your installation. In many cases, there will be systems that are already set up to do that, but you can help a customer, you can enable them to do it on their own, which in many cases is preferred by the customers. They'd actually prefer to just do it when they've got some downtime without needing to call in and wait in a queue. And and then you avoid a call completely into the call center.
That's the best kind of average call handling drop you can get, right?
That's right.
All right. So we've talked a lot about the opportunities and whatnot that you've seen currently. Let's look in the future a little bit. Where do you see this going from the contact center perspective? What are the predictions that you have as we see the contact center transformation continue?
I start to see in the future where contact centers, or just the omni-channel, as we think about contact center, web, chat, there's many ways for customers to get in touch with an organization. Where I see this going is a true and seamless omni-channel strategy where you can help customers to engage with an organization in the way that works best for them, in a way that's fast and efficient and just enhances that customer experience. One of the most important metrics in contact center is first call resolution. So by providing customers different channels with which to interact and getting things right the first time is going to eliminate all those follow-up calls. So you're going to see a drop in volumes and make customers happier because you're dealing with their request that first time. So I think that going forward, automation will really help to enable the whole omni-channel strategy and help to turn contact centers into less of a service-focused organization and more of a strategic one, where now you've only got the calls coming in that are really important and which are important to the company as well. Opportunities to upsell, to sell additional products. These are the types of interactions that you'll start to have versus the service type of inquiries, which in many cases are majority of the calls today.
Wow. All right, David, that gives us certainly a lot to think about and look forward to. So I really appreciate you bringing these insights regarding the transformation happening within the contact center. This has been very enlightening to me. So thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure connecting, and I'm just super excited about what automation can do to transform and change the way that contact centers work.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. And to make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you've heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how SS&C Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.